Well, another day, another Haason Reddick update, but this time, do we actually have hard proof of Reddick's desire to return to Philadelphia? Plus, the latest injury report from the Birds and Bucs heading into Sunday's matchup, and why Jalen Hurts, he might finally have the answer for Todd Bowles' defense. From Thomas Mott, this is the Thomas Mott Show. Now, I'm right there with you. The Haason Reddick trade saga, it's been exhausting, with ESPN reporting last week that Reddick would be moved or signed by the beginning of this past week, which obviously did not happen. But then you had Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers, how about this, taking a shot at Reddick and his agent on Pat McAfee just 4 days ago.
No. I didn't read the article, but just reading that headline there, it sounds like it was written by Haason Reddick's agent in a way to...
Then, 2 days ago, Haason Reddick's jersey was suddenly available in the Jets team store for the very first time, leaving some to wonder if a resolution on the now 2-month holdout saga that has kind of bled into the first 4 weeks of the Jets and NFL season was finally going to be resolved. But now, as of filming this, there is yet another update, this time from a different ESPN reporter on not just the Jets and Haason Reddick, but Philadelphia as well. ESPN's Jet beat writer Rick Kameni went on the Flight Deck podcast just a couple days ago, and first talked about Bryce Huff, but then highlighted his latest intel on the Reddick situation, saying, quote, Bryce Huff, probably one of the most disappointing free agents in the NFL right now. And get this, 77 snaps right now on defense. It's 80, but whatever. Only 1 tackle, 0 pressure, 0 quarterback hits, and of course 0 sacks. So essentially, he's done in 77 snaps, again 80, what Haason Reddick has done with no snaps, which is nothing. I don't think that's an indictment on Huff. I mean, we know he's a good player, and so I do believe the Jets made a mistake by letting him go. It's just that he's not a good fit in the Eagles system, and clearly Vic Fangio, their defensive coordinator, has not embraced Huff. So that's on the Eagles. They screwed up that signing. They've taken a good player, and they're misusing him. Could Huff be traded to the Jets? Well, let's put it this way. A little birdie told me that Reddick, I don't think would be opposed to something like that. I think Reddick is so frustrated with the Jet situation, of course he did request a trade in August, that he wouldn't mind going back to Philadelphia. Again, heard it from a little birdie. Take it for what it is worth. Could that trade happen? Reddick for Huff? Boy, that'd be one of the most bizarre trades in NFL history. A lot of things would have to fall into place, which means it's kind of far-fetched, but it's an interesting situation to look at nonetheless, end quote. Okay, so we have a little birdie telling a Jets insider that Reddick, quote, wouldn't mind going back to Philadelphia. That's kind of the meat today. The potatoes is this idea of a Reddick for Huff kind of swap back, which is one of the more wild trade ideas I've heard mainly in my entire lifetime. Probably not going to happen, but Reddick back to Philly, let's play ball with that one for 1 second. With the world getting crazier by the day, I've decided to partner with the sponsor for today's video, Private Internet Access VPN. Whenever you're browsing online without a virtual private network, or VPN for short, you're transmitting data out into the open that can be viewed by third parties. A virtual private network, like PIA VPN, hides your IP address and protects your connection with world-class encryption, protecting your internet connection and creating a secure tunnel between your device and the internet. PIA is used by millions of users and looks to shield you from anyone looking to exploit you using your information. Their no-log policy means your data is never stored or recorded, and it also lets you get past censorship. For example, streaming services like Netflix restrict some content based on the country you're in. It's like paying for the director's cut of a movie, but only getting the trailer. PIA lets you change your IP address to over 90 locations, letting you view what's available in those locations. And it works on all platforms, Windows, Mac, Android, and more, and you can use one subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices at the same time. Sign up for PIA VPN using my link down below and get 83% off plus an additional 4 months free. All you gotta do is follow the link down below in my description box or just go to the pinned comment. It's like right down there. Big thanks to PIA VPN for sponsoring today's show. Now, we do know the Eagles offered Reddick an extension below his $25 million asking price earlier this offseason, which naturally Reddick did obviously turn down, and eventually that was the straw that broke the camel's back and resulted in the trade to New York. 2 months later, though, and Reddick, of course, now a Jet, never got the $25 million a year contract that he basically demanded from Philadelphia, and so for this Jets report to be actually true that he could want to return to Philadelphia, he'd have to kind of sit back and wonder, well, maybe taking $20, $18, $17 million a year with the Eagles at least gets me a raise and back on the field. I do think if Howie called the Jets, offered a 5th-round draft pick, and guaranteed Reddick a $20 million a year deal to come back to Philadelphia, I think he would fix the struggling pass rush and probably solve what has been an ongoing crazy situation in New York. But again, that's what I think it would take to get a trade done like this, and obviously we have no proof Howie has even called the Jets or that the Eagles are actually interested. The big story today is that Reddick himself would be open to coming back to Philadelphia, despite reports suggesting he wanted out for various reasons a couple of months ago. I've said it before, but it's worth mentioning again, there were some rumors that Reddick was kind of the problem inside the Eagles locker room last season, that he was chasing sacks, and that obviously when Philadelphia traded him, there wasn't a big outcry from the current Eagle players on the roster as if they were losing one of their best players or a player they wanted in that locker room. Again, those are rumors. It's not hard facts. We don't actually know. I personally would like Reddick back in Philadelphia, but again, there could be a lot more layers than simply one person saying on a podcast, I heard from somebody that Reddick wants to come back. And that's the main point here, right? I can't make this trade happen. You can't make this trade happen, and I can only report on what's actually being reported. And so these are the facts. This is where we are at as of today when you're watching this show. Will things change? Could he sign a contract with the Jets tomorrow and this video is nullified? Yes, 100%. Am I getting tired of talking about what ifs for Haason Reddick? Trust me, 100% as well. But this is a new report, at least confirming something we had not heard in the past, and that is that Reddick would be open to coming back to Philadelphia, according to ESPN. Now, something I can actually confirm today, how about Lane Johnson practicing, and wait for it, video of A.J. Brown practicing as well. Now, this was obviously from early Friday morning as Brown took to the field for the Birds' final practice before the Eagles fly down to Tampa tomorrow. Now, no, this doesn't guarantee Brown will play on Sunday, but I'd say his odds of actually suiting up versus the Bucs have dramatically improved. Why even practice Brown if his hamstring wasn't close to being ready and the team wasn't planning on playing him this weekend? If Brown actually comes back, this Bird offense becomes all the more lethal, and I think has a much better chance to attack Todd Bowles' defense, not just by running Saquon Barkley alone, but actually hitting big shots over the top. Now, Smitty was a no-show today, for those wondering, so A.J. Brown back, Devontae Smith, doesn't seem to be the case. But again, having Brown and Johnson back doesn't guarantee anything. For instance, just because Lane Johnson is practicing doesn't mean he's cleared concussion protocol, but the signs are looking really, really good nonetheless for the Birds to be much healthier versus the Bucs. Now, on the flip side for Tampa Bay, the same can't really be said, as Todd Bowles just confirmed a couple of minutes ago that defensive tackle Kalijah Cansey and safety Antoine Winfield will officially be out versus Philadelphia, leaving the already reeling Bucs that kind of got embarrassed in a really surprising way last week versus the Broncos, 26-7, all the more vulnerable to hopefully a high-powered Eagles attack when A.J. Brown, again, we're not confirming he's playing, but practicing is a really good sign. Give me your score predictions for Eagles versus Bucs down below in the comment section. Very curious where you guys are feeling on this one. If A.J.'s back, I think the Birds are going to look really, really good. And when it comes to playing the Bucs on Sunday, yes, injuries are obviously happening on both sides. We just mentioned that. But really, this game is going to come down to Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense versus Todd Bowles and the Bucs defense. It's well known that Bowles has kind of had Hurts' number the past few matchups, but I do think this Birds offense in 2024, Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts' incredible play versus the blitz could be the big difference factor on Sunday to make maybe the Eagles offense look a lot more competent versus Bowles' defense for probably the first time at least since the Eagles have been playing them with Jalen Hurts. Now, if the Birds were full strength, I'd feel way more confident about this offense, but again, I still think there's something to do with Hurts, Barkley, and Goddard where they can move the football up and down on Bowles' defense and hopefully get a win and go to 3-1, something that Josh Davis and myself debated on during our live show a couple of days ago. And Josh, when we talk about defensive coordinators that have had Jalen Hurts' number, it's been Todd Bowles. I mean, Todd Bowles has, besides week 3, what was it, week 3 of last year, whenever they played the Bucs early on, where the Eagles ran the ball very well. That was like the big DeAndre Swift game before they just kind of benched him, and now Swift is getting benched in Chicago, by the way. But basically, Jalen Hurts has struggled mightily on the road against the Bucs, and that was extremely relevant in a very similar scenario just a couple of months ago, technically in the wild card round with no A.J. Brown, and they couldn't move the football. A lot of sacks, hold the ball too long, turnovers. Jalen has been dramatically better this year than where he was, the latter half of last year. But I think the big factor for this one is not necessarily Hurts. It's going to be Kellen Moore putting Hurts and giving him the opportunity to be in the right place at the right time. If we talk about the most concerning part of Jalen Hurts being the turnovers, the most impressive part, improved part, promising part, Josh, has been his blitz recognition. And that's what's beaten him multiple times versus the Tampa Bay Bucs. It's been too many blitzes right up the gut, doesn't know where to go with the football, and, panics and takes a sack or panics and throws a bad throw. That's been completely gone so far. He's done an incredible job all 3 weeks, Josh, against the blitz. And so I think this week, without A.J. Brown, without Devontae Smith, it's going to be extremely difficult, and the pressure is on. He can't turn the ball over. But if there was a week for Jalen Hurts to get over that Todd Bowles hump, Kellen Moore can help him do that. Saquon Barkley can help him do that. I don't know. I feel confident, Josh. I want your thoughts on the Hurts thing, but I really feel like the Saints win was a season-saving win. Like, it has completely turned this season around 3 weeks in, which is wild to say. They had lost to the Saints. They're obviously going to lose to the Bucs, but beating the Saints in the fashion they did, not crumbling when they could have, I think gives them a real chance. And I think Kellen Moore despite still some flaws, that offense is not perfect. It's night and day from last year, Josh. It is night and day better, and that should give people a lot of hope going into the Bucs game.
Without a doubt, yes. Because I mean, you kind of laid it out there as far as even the Bucs game. But if we didn't have AJ Brown previously, there's no hope. And still you could say, well, hey, the mesh route or whatever, but that mesh route is not being drawn. That play is not being called by a Nick Sirianni offense. It's not happening in that game. So just to not have those playmakers and still be able to move the football late in the game, you got to love it. Yes, Kellen Moore is able to capitalize even down those playmakers. So yeah, you want to see it in Tampa, and ultimately, I think a lot of us are thinking the same thing. It's like Jalen has been markedly better against the blitz.
Way better.
But this is, as Anthony DeBona phrased it, this is Jalen's boogeyman in Todd Bowles. Like, this is the one, if he can get past it, if we could come away on Monday and say, Jalen Hurts had an answer for the blitz, Jalen Hurts was on the money, and you get a win, we're 3-1 going into the bye. I think that you can dispel a lot of notions. Now, you'll still get people that are going to hate on Jalen no matter what, even if it's, he didn't have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but he had Saquon, right? Like, it's always something. It's Saquon, or it's Dallas Goedert, or Jahan Dotson plays great, and they'll blame it on him. So Jahan Dotson's incredible, right? So, but for those of us in the know, if he shows up in this game and he plays well and he does not turn the ball over, then absolutely. I think that it would be one of those where dispels the notions of that. It's a natural understanding because, yes, Jalen has turned the ball over too much, and he admits that. I think we all have seen it. But you're still seeing a different offense, to your earlier point of Kellen Moore is able to utilize these guys and put them in good spots. And some of those have been, missed throws, not Jalen seeing it properly, but Smitty made a mistake in his route that did lead to the interception earlier in the Saints game. Jalen threw the ball where Smitty goes across the safety's face there in Matthew. That's a touchdown. And he rounded out the route, and that's just not a mistake that you can make there. So it goes on both sides. But yes, I'm right there with I think everybody of it is concerning because you kind of keep letting teams hang around. If he doesn't have these turnovers, that Saints game's a blowout. Like you're just marching down the field, you score a touchdown, and the only thing maybe to stop you is Nick Sirianni, which is another topic, but still you're moving down the field and getting points. So I'm excited for it. I'm interested to see what we get from the Eagles, and then also it's like hopefully it works out in your favor, but at the same time, I could also see it where it's like, okay, the Bucs are coming off of an embarrassing loss to the Broncos. So are they amped up for it? But they're dealing with some injuries. They're dealing with some weaknesses too. So it's on both sides. I'd say more so just from the star power of the Eagles' loss, assuming AJ and Smitty and those guys are not able to play. But it'll be interesting because this is a team that obviously very familiar with, very not too far away from having played naturally back in the playoffs. So everyone remembers it, and I got to imagine that several of the guys have it in the back of their mind of like, all right, you know what? Let's take it to them. Let's get the bad taste out of their mouth. You don't remember week 2 or week 3. It's what happened in the playoff game, so let's go get it done. And again, hopefully so, because if Jalen does that without his 2 stars in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, then I think you got to say it's questions answered.
I totally agree. Shout out to Tequila Lester with 10. All prayers for offense and defensive players. Prayers up, go Birds. We agree with that. We talked about that earlier on, Tequila, if you missed it. Looks like AJ, Devontae, and Lane Johnson are almost guaranteed to be out. Lane, maybe. He seems a little further along in concussion protocol. We'll see about Becton. I think Becton plays, but the big 3, I do not expect them to play. And PJ Vasquez with a 2. Appreciate that. Anais Smith, too much of a project to expect to step up. Yeah, apparently, he's been way too much of a project. And there's always a chance to be activated, and it feels like this would be one of those games to activate Anais Smith if you really want to, but you don't have to go sign John Ross to the practice squad if you felt good about Anais Smith, right?
Well, but
he's also injured too.
I was going to say the IR. So I think that
the IR also helps.
If he was not on the IR, I don't know, you could possibly see it.
Maybe
it would be like forced into action. I don't know, because Johnny Wilson's getting some reps there. I don't know that he would necessarily get the reps that Johnny Wilson does, but at the same time, it'd be like, okay, we're literally pressed here of having 2 guys on the active roster. So that'll be another interesting one, because once he comes back from the IR, like, you have to make space in a way. Does he see some playing time? Does he see a little bit of the field? I don't know. But yes, as of right now, it's kind of a fair point, a combination anyway, for what we've seen on the IR. But yeah, this is, I mean, ultimately it comes back to, and not that we're taking anything away from Jalen, even though some people would say, I think Colin Cowherd maybe even said, like, it's just Saquon, right? Like without Saquon, the Eagles don't win, blah, blah, whatever.
Which is such a funny thing, right? So it's
they're a
the Eagles'
team.
fault for getting Saquon Barkley
For sure.
and helping them win, right?
Yeah.
That's like the problem, yeah. No, I mean, listen, the media is not all in on Philadelphia, but what's interesting, Josh, and this is probably going on way too far of a tangent, but it is a down year in the National Football League in terms of all around. Patrick Mahomes has been struggling, barely winning football games, but Joe Burrow is 0-3. I think the best team right now is the Buffalo Bills. I think the best team in the NFC is probably the Minnesota Vikings, but both those teams have massive question marks. Buffalo, obviously, at corner, I think, and I would definitely say at wide receiver, even though Josh Allen has overcome those question marks early on. And the Minnesota Vikings have Sam Darnold, who we know can play bad. We're just shocked he's playing so good. And so we sit here back and go, oh, well, the Eagles, they're lucky with Saquon Barkley. Jalen's turning the ball over too much. The second Jalen stops turning the ball over too much and these weapons come back on the outside, who is going to stop this offense? No one basically can anyway.
I don't know
Put
how you
AJ
do.
Brown back on the field, Josh, and it's right there for the taking. If they can get to the bye week, if they can win on Sunday and get to the bye 3-1, they get a nice little stretch where it feels like they can kind of get healthy, play the Browns, play the Giants, maybe start to get a little of a rhythm here. And as we've seen with other NFC East teams, the schedule is brutal for the Dallas Cowboys. They don't seem to be going anywhere fast.
Yeah.
I think Jaden Daniels is going to make the Washington Commanders very good this year and excellent going forward, but they're not a championship division winning team just yet. And so you'll probably split with them, maybe have a couple close games, but it's right there for the taking. I mean, Green Bay is probably pretty good, Josh. I definitely think Minnesota is very good. Besides that, in the NFC, are you scared of the 3-0 Seattle Seahawks? I'm not, right? I mean,
no.
I think they're fine.
They've shown
but
more, but right, it's not an immediate of
scared.
Oh my gosh, there's going to be something that you're terrified of. So, no, I'm right there with you. Yeah, it's one of those that it still goes back to being hilarious because you get knocked if you have Saquon. It's like, oh well, they have Saquon. If they didn't have him. But you made the move to get Saquon for that very reason. You saw the weapon that he was. The Giants weren't willing to pay him. Other teams were getting close and wanting to, but you outbid them and you took Saquon. So it's like it's kudos for the move. But you get some hate for it, everything there. Still, you say right now, and to your point, this is like, I guess, the bigger aspect of the entire football league. It is strange because of the offense is being down, but as the viral clip I'm sure a lot of people have seen from Mel Kiper and the two high safety and all the look of changing, what the defenses are doing. But the league morphs like this every so often. You have a year where the defense has a little bit of an advantage for whatever reason, and then it changes, and then the offense, and it goes back and forth. But still, as of right now, I mean, the Eagles have the answer within Saquon Barkley, and that's with, as you said there, not having an A.J. Brown and not having a Devontae Smith. When they get them back, it's a pick your poison. Do you load the box and then you make it easy for those one-on-ones of A.J. because it was just throw it up there to him? And with Kellen Moore's offense, I think it's going to slowly but surely you see this team get more efficient, get more comfortable within his scheme. And, I mean, I don't know if you're necessarily a believer in the full-on, like, they're peaking at the right time, but like there is such a thing as momentum. And so if you can carry that into the playoffs, then it could be perfect timing. So I will say, as far as when we talked about previously of like the bye week and it's early and I want it to be later in the season, it's a blessing in disguise at this point. Like if we didn't have a bye week coming up right now, it would be a little bit terrifying because you'd have more games coming up and, you're already bad enough with the injuries. And if you get more of them, then we're just piling on. And it's like at some point, there's got to be, there's like nobody left. You're looking at all these options now. And we knock on wood, fingers crossed, hopefully everyone stays healthy. But if you had any of your other star players go down, what offense are we looking at, really? I mean, I can't imagine having more depletion from the offensive side. But so far, you could, if you get through this one, you get into the bye week, you recoup. You're hopefully 3-1 if you get the win there, and it's there for the taking because you said all those different NFC teams. There's not an immediate one that just sticks out and going, oh wow, that's the juggernaut. That's the one that they're just going to run away with it, and there's no chance. So it'll be interesting, and I would say too, to the point of the NFC, you brought up Jaden Daniels. there was some speculation or question like, okay, who's it going to be? Who's the competition? We talk about Dallas, but
Yeah.
I think the Commanders. Early signs, early returns, I know, but I think the Commanders are probably your biggest bet. They went into Cincinnati, beat Joe Burrow in 3. Shout out to Cole for that one. Joe Burrow in 3. You like that one? Burrow in 3.
Pretty good.
But,
5 out of 10. It's okay.
Okay, all right. I thought it was pretty good. But you beat him in Cincinnati and no turnovers for the Commanders too. That's crazy.
Yeah,
but
his completion percentage has been crazy too.
Kind of legit.
Yeah.
Maybe something there in Washington.
Myself and Josh Davis will be live for that Bucs-Eagles game on Sunday, kind of right before 1 p.m. Eastern time. We had like 100,000 people join us for our first couple of shows, so make sure you guys join us, hit the subscribe button, and come hang out. Put it on the TV, listen to us, mute the TV, turn us up, however you guys want to do it. It's a whole bunch of fun for our Eagles watch party happening again a couple of minutes before kickoff on Sunday, 1 p.m. Sure to go ahead and check that out. I'm Thomas Mott, hanging out on a weekend. This has been The Thomas Mott Show.